The pink and blue confetti cannons exploded at the exact moment Penelope Sinclair realized she would rather be anywhere else on Earth. And that was saying something, since she had just returned from a 14-hour shift at the veterinary emergency clinic, where a Great Dane had vomited on her shoes. She stood on the manicured lawn of her cousin Melissa's sprawling suburban home, surrounded by at least 60 people she barely knew, all of whom seemed genuinely thrilled about the prospect of finding out whether Melissa's third child would be a boy or a girl. Penelope loved her cousin, truly she did, but the theatrics of modern celebrations had reached a level she could not comprehend. There were balloon arches. There was a dessert table that looked like it belonged at a royal wedding. There was a photographer with an assistant who kept adjusting reflectors, as if this were a fashion shoot, and not just her cousin learning information that an ultrasound technician already knew. The confetti settled, revealing blue streamers and blue powder and what appeared to be blue glitter that would probably still be in this yard come Christmas. A boy. Everyone cheered. Penelope clapped politely and wondered if she could slip away without being noticed. She had been at the clinic since 6 that morning. Her scrubs were in a bag in her car, replaced by jeans and a simple white blouse that she hoped made her look presentably enthusiastic. Her dark hair was pulled into a ponytail that had seen better days, and she was fairly certain she still smelled faintly of antiseptic despite her shower. She was exhausted, hungry despite the elaborate spread, and desperately craving silence. Penelope made her way toward the house, thinking she might hide in a bathroom for 10 minutes, when she noticed someone else who looked equally thrilled to be there. He was tall, probably 6'2", with dark hair that was professionally cut but slightly mussed, as if he had been running his hands through it. He wore dark jeans and a gray Henley that fit him well enough to suggest he took care of himself. He was standing near the fence line, holding a beer he did not seem to be drinking, watching the celebration with an expression that could only be described as polite bewilderment. Their eyes met across the yard, and something passed between them. Recognition, perhaps, though not of each other but of their shared predicament. Fellow prisoners at the party they had not wanted to attend. He raised his beer slightly in acknowledgement. She found herself walking toward him without quite deciding to do so. "Let me guess," she said when she reached him. "You are also here because of familial obligation and social contract." His mouth quirked into something that was not quite a smile but close. "Is it that obvious? You have the look of someone who would rather be literally anywhere else." "I recognize it because I am wearing the same expression." "Yates Stratford," he said, extending his hand. "Melissa's husband's cousin. We met once at their wedding, but I doubt you remember. There were about 200 people there. Penelope Sinclair, Melissa's cousin on her mother's side." "And you are right, I do not remember, but in my defense, I had just finished my first year of veterinary school and was operating on approximately 3 hours of sleep." His handshake was firm and warm. "Veterinary school. That explains why you look like you have already put in a full day before coming to a party that started at 3 in the afternoon." "Emergency clinic," she confirmed. "We had a dog who ate a sock, 2 cats who got into fights with other cats, and the aforementioned Great Dane with the stomach issues. What is your excuse for looking exhausted? Business meeting that ran until 1 in the morning, then a flight that landed at 7 this morning." "I came straight here because apparently I made the mistake of answering my phone when my cousin called." Penelope laughed, surprising herself. She had not expected to laugh at all today. "We are both terrible at setting boundaries." "The worst," he agreed. "Although in my defense, Derek implied that I would be disowned from the family if I missed this. I am starting to think he was exaggerating. Melissa told me that if I did not come, she would show up at my apartment and drag me here herself. Given that she is 7 months pregnant and terrifying when determined, I believed her. They stood in companionable silence for a moment, watching as Melissa and Derek cut into a cake that was also, unsurprisingly, blue on the inside. Someone had started a chant. Penelope could not quite make out what they were chanting, but it was enthusiastic. "You think anyone would notice if we just left?" Yates asked. "Melissa would hunt us down. She has a sixth sense about these things. What if we just moved farther away from the epicenter?" "There is a garden around the side of the house. I noticed it when I arrived." Penelope considered this. "That seems like a reasonable compromise." They walked together toward the side yard, where the noise of the party faded to a more manageable level. The garden was actually lovely, full of early summer flowers and a small fountain that burbled pleasantly. There was a bench, and they sat down without discussion. "So how does someone go from saying yes to a party invitation to hiding in a garden?" Yates asked. "What is your story?" "I told you. Veterinary school. Then more veterinary school. Then emergency clinic work. That means I have no life and barely sleep. I love it, but it does not leave much time for maintaining relationships with extended family, which means I accumulate guilt, which means I show up to things like this even when I am dead on my feet." She stretched her legs out in front of her. "Your turn." "I run a commercial real estate development company. We acquire properties, develop them, lease them out. Started it 7 years ago with money I saved working in construction, plus a loan I am still paying off, though not for much longer. It has done well. Very well, actually. But it means I work constantly, travel constantly, and apparently forget how to interact with humans at normal social functions. You are interacting fine with me. You are different. You also want to be here as little as I do. There is no pressure to pretend." Penelope found herself studying him more carefully. There was something direct about him, straightforward in a way she appreciated. He did not seem like the type to play games or say things he did not mean. "Commercial real estate development," she said. "That sounds impressive and exhausting." "It is both. We just closed on a deal in Chicago that took 9 months to negotiate. I have been living on coffee and spite for the better part of a year." Coffee and spite. That could be the title of my autobiography. He laughed, and she noticed how it changed his face, softening the serious lines around his mouth. "How long have you been at the emergency clinic?" 3 years. "Before that, I did a general practice residency, but I realized I liked the chaos of emergency medicine. Every day is different. You never know what is going to come through the door. It keeps me sharp." "Do you ever sleep?" "Sleep is theoretical. I have heard it exists, but I cannot confirm." They talked for over an hour. The party continued without them, occasional bursts of laughter and music drifting over, but they stayed in the garden. Penelope learned that Yates had grown up in Vermont, that he had 2 younger sisters he was fiercely protective of, that he had worked construction for 6 years before starting his company because he wanted to understand buildings from the ground up. He learned that she had wanted to be a veterinarian since she was 7 and had met her first golden retriever, that she had a cat named Professor Whiskers who was judgmental and perfect, that she took her coffee black because adding anything else was just wasting time she did not have. "We should probably make an appearance," Yates said eventually, though he did not sound enthusiastic about it, "before they send out a search party." "I suppose you are right." They stood, and Penelope realized she was disappointed. She had been enjoying herself, which was unexpected. Yates seemed to hesitate, then pulled out his phone. "Can I get your number? I would like to continue this conversation when we are not hiding from a gender reveal party." She smiled. "Yes, I would like that too." They exchanged numbers and then they returned to the party. Melissa spotted Penelope immediately and waved her over, launching into a detailed explanation of the nursery plans. Penelope listened and nodded and tried to look interested, but her mind kept drifting back to the garden and the man with the tired eyes who understood what it was like to build something from nothing. She left the party an hour later, exhausted but strangely energized. Her phone buzzed as she was getting into her car. "This is Yates. Just wanted to make sure you got my number and this was not some elaborate garden fever dream. When can I take you to dinner?" Penelope found herself grinning like an idiot. Not a fever dream. "I work tomorrow night, but I am free Wednesday evening." "Wednesday it is. I will find somewhere that serves food that can be eaten by humans who are too tired to function. This will be my gift to you." That is the most romantic thing anyone has ever said to me. Your standards are concerning. I will work on raising them. Get home safe. She drove home with the radio off, just processing the unexpected turn her day had taken. She had gone to a gender reveal party expecting to suffer through a few hours of obligation. Instead, she had met someone who made her laugh, who understood the specific exhaustion that came from building a career you loved, who looked at her like she was interesting rather than just the cousin who showed up late smelling like dog. Wednesday took forever to arrive. Penelope worked 2 12-hour shifts, dealt with a cat who had eaten a hair tie and a dog who had been hit by a car but would recover, and tried not to obsessively check her phone. Yates texted her periodically, nothing profound, just small observations about his day. A photo of a building site with the caption, "This is going to be beautiful in about 8 months." A complaint about a meeting that could have been an email. A question about whether cats really hated everyone or if that was just propaganda. She found herself looking forward to his messages, found herself composing responses in her head while she was trying to focus on work. This was dangerous territory. She had not dated anyone seriously in over 2 years. Her schedule made relationships difficult, and most men seemed to think that "I work at an emergency clinic" meant "I have a normal 9 to 5 with occasional on-call hours," rather than "I regularly work 50-hour weeks and sometimes get called in on my days off." But Yates worked as much as she did. He understood. He picked her up at 7 on Wednesday, driving a truck that was clean but clearly used for actual work, not just appearances. She appreciated that. She had changed out of her scrubs into a dark green dress that she had not worn in months, and she had actually done something with her hair beyond throwing it into a ponytail. "You look beautiful," he said when she got in, and he said it like he meant it, not like he was just following a script. "You clean up well yourself." He had worn dark jeans and a button-down shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows. Simple, but it worked on him. He took her to a small Italian restaurant that was not trendy or expensive but smelled incredible. They sat in a corner booth, and the host seemed to know Yates by name. "I do a lot of takeout," he explained. "I live about 3 blocks from here and I cannot cook to save my life. I can cook, but I am usually too tired to bother. I eat a lot of scrambled eggs and whatever vegetables I can microwave. We are both disasters. Successful disasters, though. I will drink to that." They ordered wine and pasta, and the conversation picked up right where it had left off in the garden. Easy. Natural. Penelope could not remember the last time she had felt this comfortable with someone new. Usually, first dates were an exercise in anxiety management, both parties trying to present their best selves, carefully avoiding topics that might be controversial or too revealing. But with Yates, she found herself talking about things she rarely discussed. The dog she had not been able to save last week, and how it still haunted her. The client who had screamed at her because the treatment was expensive, as if she personally set the prices. the moments of joy when an animal recovered against the odds, and the owner cried with relief. He told her about the deals that fell through, about the properties that had problems he had not anticipated, about the people who tried to take advantage of him because he was young. He told her about the first building he had ever developed, a small office complex that he still drove past sometimes just to remind himself how far he had come. "You ever think about doing something else?" she asked. "Something easier?" "Never. This is what I am supposed to be doing." "I know that sounds pretentious, but I cannot explain it any other way. What about you?" "Same. Even on the worst days, I cannot imagine doing anything else. Animals do not lie to you. They do not play games. They are just themselves, and you help them or you do not. There is something pure about that." The restaurant was closing by the time they finally left. They had been there for over 3 hours. Yates drove her home, and they sat in his truck outside her apartment building, neither quite ready for the evening to end. "I want to see you again," he said. "Soon. Is that too direct?" "No, I like direct. I want to see you again too." "When is your next day off?" "Sunday, but I am on call, so there is a chance I might get pulled in." "I will take that chance. Let me cook you breakfast, or attempt to cook you breakfast." "It will be an adventure in mediocrity," she laughed. "That sounds perfect." He walked her to her door, and they stood in the hallway, the fluorescent lights humming overhead. It was not romantic by any conventional standard, but Penelope found she did not care. He kissed her good night, soft and brief, like a question. She answered by kissing him back. Sunday morning arrived with no emergency calls, which felt like a minor miracle. Penelope drove to the address Yates had texted her, expecting an apartment. Instead, she pulled up to a newly renovated townhouse in a neighborhood that was clearly on the rise. The building was beautiful, all clean lines and large windows. Yates answered the door in jeans and a t-shirt, hair still damp from a shower. "Welcome to my disaster of an attempt at domesticity. I have eggs, I have bread, I have coffee. Beyond that, I make no promises." His place was sparsely furnished but thoughtful. Good furniture, minimal decoration, everything organized. It looked like a place owned by someone who was rarely home but wanted it to be comfortable when he was. "Did you develop this building?" she asked, looking around. "I did. About 2 years ago. I kept the top unit for myself. Seemed silly to live somewhere else when I had built exactly what I wanted." He made them breakfast, which turned out to be better than advertised. Scrambled eggs with cheese, toast, fresh fruit, coffee that was strong and perfect. They ate on his small balcony looking out over the neighborhood. "This is nice," Penelope said. "Peaceful. It is my refuge. When work gets overwhelming, I come out here and remember why I am doing this. Building things that last, creating spaces that people need. It matters. That is how I feel about the animals. Every life matters. Every animal that comes through our doors deserves the best care we can give them. Sometimes it does not work out, but we try. We always try." They spent the day together. They walked through the neighborhood, stopped at a farmer's market, bought vegetables that Yates claimed he would learn to cook. They went back to his place and watched a movie, though neither of them paid much attention to it. They talked instead, learning more about each other, building something that felt substantial. Her phone rang at 4 in the afternoon. "The clinic." She answered, listened, closed her eyes briefly. "I will be there in 20 minutes. "Emergency?" Yates asked. "Dog hit by a car." "They need all hands on deck." "Go. Do what you do. Text me when you can." She kissed him quickly and left, already shifting into work mode. The emergency was complex and took hours, but the dog survived. Penelope drove home at midnight, exhausted but satisfied, and found a text from Yates waiting. "I hope the dog is okay. I hope you are okay. Sleep well. Talk tomorrow." Simple. Thoughtful. No demands, no guilt about her leaving, no suggestion that her job was an inconvenience, just understanding. She fell asleep smiling. They fell into a pattern over the next few weeks. Stolen dinners between her shifts and his meetings, text messages throughout the day, phone calls late at night when they were both finally done with work but too wired to sleep. She met him at building sites, watching as he walked through properties with contractors, his entire demeanor shifting into something focused and commanding. He was good at what he did, she realized. Really good. People respected him. He came to the clinic one evening, ostensibly to pick her up for dinner, but really because she had mentioned a particularly difficult case, and he wanted to make sure she was okay. He met her coworkers, who sized him up with the kind of scrutiny usually reserved for diagnosing obscure illnesses. He passed whatever test they were administering, charming her supervisor by asking intelligent questions about veterinary medicine, and making her favorite tech laugh with a story about his sister's disaster of a cat. "He is good," her friend Rachel said after Yates had stepped outside to take a call. "Do not screw this up. I am trying not to. He looks at you like you are the most interesting person in the room. Do you know how rare that is?" Penelope did know. She had dated men who looked at their phones more than they looked at her, who saw her career as competition rather than something to admire, who wanted her to be available on their schedule without considering that she had her own life. Yates was different. He asked about her cases, remembered details about the animals she mentioned, celebrated her victories, and understood her losses. It was on their 2-month anniversary, a milestone they had not officially acknowledged, but both seemed aware of, that Yates took her to dinner at a restaurant that was significantly nicer than their usual spots. It was the kind of place that had a dress code and a sommelier and prices that were not listed on the menu. "This is very fancy," Penelope said, looking around. "Are we celebrating something? Maybe. I wanted to talk to you about something, and I wanted to do it somewhere that felt significant." Her stomach dropped slightly. That sounded ominous. "Okay." They ordered, and Yates seemed unusually nervous, which was concerning because he was normally so composed. He waited until their appetizers arrived, then set down his fork and looked at her directly. "I need to be honest with you about something. I should have told you earlier, but the timing never felt right and then it felt too late, and now I am worried you are going to be upset that I waited this long. You are kind of freaking me out. What is going on?" "My company. The Real Estate Development Company. It has done very well, better than I let on when we first met. I did not lie to you exactly, but I downplayed the scope of it. We do not just develop small office complexes. We do major commercial projects, hotels, mixed-use developments, office towers. We have projects in 12 states. The company is worth about $40 million and my personal net worth is somewhere around $15 million. Penelope stared at him. "You are a millionaire." "Yes." "A multimillionaire." "Yes." She sat back in her chair, processing. "Why did you not tell me?" "Because people get weird when they find out. They either want something from me, or they start treating me differently, or they assume I am going to be arrogant or entitled. And when I met you at the party, you just saw me as another person who did not want to be there. You did not know anything about my company or my money, and you liked me anyway. I liked that. I liked being just Yates with you, not Yates the successful developer or Yates who could write a check for whatever you needed. Just me. So you lied." "I did not lie. I told you exactly what I do. I just did not tell you the scale of it." "That is a pretty significant omission, Yates. I know. I am sorry. I should have told you sooner, but I was afraid you would look at me differently, and I did not want that. I do not want that." Penelope did not know what to feel. Anger, yes, because she did not like being kept in the dark about important things. But she also understood where he was coming from. She had seen how people treated doctors differently once they knew what they did for a living, the assumptions made about income and status and availability. It was exhausting. "Are you expecting me to react badly?" she asked. "I do not know, I hope not. But I needed you to know the truth, all of it, because this is getting serious, at least for me, and I do not want there to be secrets between us." "It is serious for me too," she admitted. "Which is why this stings a little. I thought we were being honest with each other. We were. We are. This was the only thing I held back, and I am telling you now because I want you to know everything. I want you to know that the money does not change who I am. I still worked construction for 6 years. I still have student loans from the business courses I took. I still eat takeout 3 nights a week because I cannot figure out how to cook properly. I am still just me." She looked at him, really looked at him. He was nervous, genuinely worried about her reaction. This was not the move of someone trying to manipulate or impress. This was someone who had been protecting himself and was now choosing to be vulnerable. "I wish you had told me sooner," she said finally. "But I understand why you did not. And for the record, I do not care about your money. I mean, it is nice that you are successful, but that is not why I am here. I am here because you make me laugh, because you understand what it is like to work too much and love what you do. Because you showed up at my clinic just to make sure I was okay. That is what matters to me." The relief on his face was palpable. "Really, really. Although now I understand why you never flinched at the check at restaurants. I kept thinking you were just being polite. I am always polite. But also, yes, the money helps." They finished dinner, the tension easing. By the time dessert arrived, they were back to their normal rhythm, teasing each other and making plans for the weekend. But something had shifted. The revelation had forced a deeper level of honesty, and Penelope found herself wanting to match it. "I need to tell you something too," she said. "If we are being fully honest, okay. I am falling in love with you. I did not plan on it. My life does not have room for a relationship, or at least I did not think it did. But you fit somehow. You make everything better. And that terrifies me because I have never felt this way about anyone before, and I do not know what to do with it." Yates reached across the table and took her hand. "I am falling in love with you too. Have been for weeks. Probably since you told me your cat's name was Professor Whiskers and said it with complete sincerity. He is a very distinguished cat, I am sure he is, and I am sure he is going to hate me when he meets me. He hates everyone. It is part of his charm." They left the restaurant hand in hand, and Yates drove her back to his place. They stayed up talking until 3 in the morning, sharing things they had not shared before. Penelope told him about the ex-boyfriend who had resented her career, who had given her ultimatums about spending less time at work, who had made her feel guilty for caring about her job. Yates told her about the woman he had dated 2 years ago who had loved his money but not him, who had wanted the lifestyle but not the person providing it. "I do not want to be another person who disappoints you," Penelope said. "You could not disappoint me if you tried. You are exactly what I did not know I was looking for." They made love for the first time that night, slow and tender and intense. Afterward, they lay tangled together in his bed, her head on his chest, his fingers tracing patterns on her shoulder. "Stay," he said. "I know you have work tomorrow, but stay tonight." "Okay." She fell asleep feeling safe in a way she had not felt in years, maybe ever. When her alarm went off at 5 in the morning, Yates woke up with her, made her coffee while she showered, kissed her goodbye at the door. "Text me when you have a break. I want to know about your day. It is going to be boring, probably just routine checkups and vaccinations. I do not care. I want to hear about it anyway." She drove to work feeling lighter than she had in months. Rachel took one look at her and grinned. "You are glowing. What happened?" "Nothing. Everything. I do not know. I think I am in love." About time. That man has been crazy about you since the first time he showed up here. The next few months were a blur of happiness. They navigated their complicated schedules, finding pockets of time to be together. Yates started working from home more often, especially when she had rare days off, so they could spend lazy mornings together. She started keeping clothes at his place, a toothbrush in his bathroom, her favorite coffee in his kitchen. He met her parents at a barbecue in July, and her father, a retired construction foreman, spent an hour grilling him about building codes and safety standards. Yates passed that test too, and by the end of the evening, her father was showing him photos of a deck he had built and asking for advice on a renovation project. "I like him," her mother said, pulling Penelope aside. "He looks at you the way your father looks at me. Like you are the best thing that ever happened to him." "It is still early," Penelope protested, but she was smiling. "Some things you just know. Trust me on this." She met his family in August when his younger sister got engaged and there was a celebration at his parents' house in Vermont. His family was warm and welcoming, his sisters immediately pulling her into their circle, his mother hugging her like she was already part of the family. His father, a retired teacher, talked to her about education and animal behavior and seemed genuinely interested in her work. "You make him happy," his mother said. "I have not seen him this relaxed in years. Whatever you are doing, keep doing it. I am not doing anything special. I am just being myself. That is exactly what he needs." They took a long weekend in September and drove to the coast, staying in a small bed and breakfast that had no television and spotty internet. They spent 3 days walking on the beach, eating fresh seafood, and talking about everything and nothing. It was on the last evening, watching the sunset from their room's small balcony, that Yates brought up the future. "I have been thinking about the next few years, where I want to be, what I want to be doing, and every scenario I imagine includes you." Penelope looked at him. "That is a big statement, I know, but it is true. I want to build a life with you, Penelope. I want to come home to you every day. I want to hear about the animals you saved and the ones you could not. I want to make you breakfast and fail at cooking dinner and order takeout because neither of us can function like normal adults. I want everything. I want that too, but I do not know how it works logistically. My apartment is small and you love your townhouse. My schedule is unpredictable. Your company is growing and demanding more of your time. We will figure it out. People make it work all the time. We are both smart and stubborn. We can do this." When you put it that way, it sounds simple. Maybe it is. Maybe we are overcomplicating it. They talked through the logistics on the drive home. Penelope would move into his townhouse. It was bigger, closer to her clinic, and he owned it outright. She would keep her apartment for another few months, just in case, but they both knew she would not need it. They would combine their lives slowly, making sure they still had space to be individuals while building something together. The move happened in October. Penelope was nervous about it, worried that living together would reveal incompatibilities or annoyances that would ruin what they had. But it turned out to be easy. They settled into a rhythm quickly, learning each other's habits and quirks. Yates discovered that Penelope was neat in common spaces, but her bedroom became a disaster zone when she was stressed. She discovered that he woke up early and liked to work out before breakfast, and that he sang in the shower, off-key but enthusiastic. Professor Whiskers, to everyone's surprise, tolerated Yates. He did not love him, but he did not actively try to murder him, which Penelope considered a victory. Work continued to be demanding for both of them. Penelope had a stretch in November where she worked 60 hours in 5 days because the clinic was understaffed and there was a parvovirus outbreak. She came home exhausted and barely coherent, and Yates just held her while she cried about the puppy they had not been able to save. He did not try to fix it or offer platitudes. He just held her and let her feel what she needed to feel. Yates had a project in December that required him to be in Atlanta for 10 days. He called her every night, sometimes after midnight, when he was finally done with meetings and site visits. They missed each other desperately, and when he finally came home, they spent an entire weekend in bed, just reconnecting. "I hate being away from you," he said. "I never used to mind traveling for work, but now it feels wrong, like I am missing something important." "I feel the same way. Even when I am at the clinic, I am thinking about getting home to you. It is annoying and wonderful at the same time." That is love for you. Inconvenient and perfect. Christmas was spent with her family, New Year's with his. Both celebrations felt significant, like they were weaving their lives together in ways that would be impossible to untangle. Not that Penelope wanted to untangle anything. She was happier than she had ever been. It was in February, on a completely ordinary Tuesday evening, that Yates proposed. They had just finished dinner, another attempt at cooking that had turned out mediocre but edible. They were cleaning up together, Penelope washing dishes while Yates dried, when he suddenly took the plate from her hands and set it in the sink. "What are you doing?" she asked, confused. "I was going to plan this. I was going to take you somewhere romantic and make a speech and do it properly. But I cannot wait anymore. Every day with you is the best day of my life, and I want every day for the rest of my life to be with you." He pulled a small box from his pocket and got down on one knee right there in their kitchen, soap suds still on Penelope's hands. "Penelope Sinclair, will you marry me?" The ring was beautiful, a simple diamond on a platinum band, elegant and understated. Exactly what she would have chosen for herself. Yes, yes, of course, yes. He slid the ring onto her finger and they both started laughing, giddy and overwhelmed. He stood and kissed her, and she got soap suds on his shirt, and neither of them cared. "That was not the romantic proposal you deserved," he said. "It was perfect. It was us. Ordinary and real and exactly right." They called their families, sent texts to friends, spent the rest of the evening making plans and dreaming about the future. They decided on a small wedding, just immediate family and close friends. Neither of them wanted a big production. They wanted to be married, to start their lives as husband and wife, without the stress and expense of a huge celebration. The wedding took place in May in his parents' backyard in Vermont. The weather cooperated, providing a perfect spring day with clear skies and warm sunshine. Penelope wore a simple white dress that she had found on her first shopping trip and knew immediately was right. Yates wore a dark suit and cried when he saw her walking toward him. The ceremony was short and sweet. They had written their own vows, promising to support each other's dreams, to be patient with each other's flaws, to choose love even when it was difficult. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, their families cheered, and Penelope felt a surge of joy so intense it was almost overwhelming. The reception was casual, a barbecue with tables set up under string lights, good food and better company. Penelope's father gave a toast that made everyone laugh and cry. Yates's sister gave a speech about how she had never seen her brother so happy. They danced to a song neither of them remembered choosing but felt perfect anyway. "How does it feel to be married?" Rachel asked, pulling Penelope aside at one point, like everything just clicked into place. "Like I found the missing piece I did not know I was looking for. You two are disgustingly happy. I love it." They honeymooned in Italy for 2 weeks, the longest either of them had taken off work in years. They ate too much pasta, drank too much wine, walked through ancient cities and tiny villages, and fell even more in love. It was blissful and romantic, and everything a honeymoon should be. Real life resumed when they got back, but it felt different now. They were not just living together. They were building a marriage, a partnership that went beyond logistics and convenience. They made decisions together, big and small. When Yates was offered an opportunity to expand his company into international markets, he talked it through with Penelope first, making sure she was comfortable with the increased travel demands. When Penelope was approached about a teaching position at the veterinary school, she discussed it with Yates, weighing the pros and cons of leaving emergency medicine for academia. In the end, Yates turned down the international expansion, realizing he did not want to sacrifice time with Penelope for business growth. The company was successful enough. He had proven what he wanted to prove. Now he wanted to focus on his life, not just his career. Penelope accepted the teaching position, starting part-time while still working at the clinic. She discovered she loved teaching, loved sharing her knowledge with the next generation of veterinarians. She still did emergency shifts occasionally, but the more predictable schedule meant more time with Yates, and that felt like the right choice. They talked about children in that first year of marriage, not in concrete terms but in possibilities. Did they want them? When? How many? Neither was in a rush, but they both agreed that yes, eventually, they wanted to start a family. "I want our kids to see what a good partnership looks like," Yates said one night. "I want them to grow up knowing that their parents love each other and respect each other and work together. That is the best gift we could give them." Agreed. Although fair warning, I have no idea how to be a mother. I am great with animals, but human children are a whole different challenge. We will figure it out together. That seems to be our thing. They started trying to conceive in their second year of marriage. Penelope got pregnant 4 months later, and they were both thrilled and terrified. She had a relatively easy pregnancy, all things considered. The morning sickness was rough for the first trimester, but after that, she felt good, energized even. She worked up until 2 weeks before her due date, only stopping when her supervisor threatened to ban her from the clinic if she did not take maternity leave. Their daughter, Emma Rose Stratford, was born on a snowy January morning after 18 hours of labor. She had Yates's dark hair and Penelope's blue eyes, and she was perfect. Yates cried when he held her for the first time, this giant man holding a tiny baby with infinite gentleness. "We made a person," he said, awed. "A whole entire person. We did. And now we have to keep her alive and raise her to be a functional human. No pressure. We have got this." They did have it, though there were definitely moments in those early months when Penelope was not sure they would survive. The sleep deprivation was no joke. Emma was a good baby overall, but she had her nights and days confused for the first few weeks, which meant Penelope and Yates were walking zombies, taking shifts so at least one of them could get a few hours of consecutive sleep. But they found their rhythm eventually. Yates was an incredible father, patient and attentive and completely smitten with his daughter. He adjusted his work schedule to be home more, delegating responsibilities to his team that he would have insisted on handling himself a few years earlier. His priorities had shifted. Work was important, but it was not everything. Penelope went back to teaching part-time when Emma was 4 months old, and they hired a nanny to help during the day. It was an adjustment, balancing work and motherhood, but Penelope was determined to make it work. She loved her career. She loved her daughter. She did not see why she should have to choose between them. Emma grew from a baby into a toddler who was curious and fearless and constantly getting into everything. She loved animals, which delighted Penelope to no end. By the time she was 2, she could identify a dozen different species and made everyone laugh with her attempts at animal sounds. They bought a dog when Emma turned 3. a golden retriever puppy named Biscuit, who immediately became Emma's best friend. Watching his daughter and the dog play together, Yates felt a contentment he had not known was possible. "We built a good life," he said to Penelope one evening. They were sitting on their balcony, the same balcony where they had eaten breakfast on their second date, watching Emma and Biscuit run around the yard below. "We did. It is not perfect. I am still tired all the time. You still work too much." Emma is definitely going through a phase where she thinks bedtime is negotiable, but it is ours, and I would not change any of it. Not even the gender reveal party where we met, because I know you hated that party, Penelope laughed. "Okay, I would keep the gender reveal party. Even though it was terrible, it gave me you. That makes it worth it." "Best terrible party ever," agreed. They sat in comfortable silence, holding hands, watching their daughter play. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange. It was an ordinary moment, nothing dramatic or extraordinary. But it was perfect. Penelope thought back to that day at Melissa's house, standing in that crowded yard, feeling like she wanted to be anywhere else. She had been so exhausted, so disconnected from the celebration happening around her. And then she had noticed Yates, another bored person at a party neither of them wanted to attend. She had not expected him to be interesting. She certainly had not expected to fall in love with him, but life had a way of surprising you when you least expected it. "What are you thinking about?" Yates asked. "Just how lucky I am. How lucky we are. I almost did not go to that party, you know. I told Melissa I had to work and she called me out on it, said I was making excuses. I was so annoyed with her, and now I need to thank her for forcing me to show up. I almost did not go either. Derek called me 3 times before I finally answered. I was busy with a project and I did not want to take the time off. If he had not been so persistent, we would never have met. We should probably send them a thank you gift or something. Or we could name our next kid after them." "Our next kid? You did not think we were stopping at one, did you?" Penelope smiled. "I guess I did not. Emma could use a sibling, someone to gang up on us with when she is a teenager." "Exactly. We need to even the odds while we can." They stayed on the balcony until Emma started yawning, then brought her inside for bath time and stories and the elaborate bedtime routine that had somehow developed over the years. After Emma was finally asleep, they collapsed on the couch, Yates pulling Penelope close. "I love you," he said. "In case I do not say it enough. You say it all the time, but I never get tired of hearing it. I love you too." They fell asleep there on the couch, exhausted but happy, surrounded by the life they had built together. It was not the life Penelope had imagined for herself when she was working 80-hour weeks in veterinary school, convinced she did not have time for relationships. It was better. And it had all started because she was bored at a gender reveal party and noticed the only other person who looked equally uninterested in pink and blue confetti. Sometimes the best things in life happened when you least expected them, when you were not looking for them at all. Penelope Sinclair Stratford, veterinarian and professor and mother and wife, fell asleep thinking about how grateful she was for boring parties and persistent cousins and men who understood what it meant to build something meaningful. She fell asleep thinking about how lucky she was to have found her person, her partner, her home. And Yates Stratford, millionaire developer and husband and father, fell asleep thinking about the woman who had changed his entire life by simply being herself, who had looked at him in that garden and seen not his success or his money, but just him. He fell asleep thinking about how he would spend the rest of his life making sure she knew how loved she was, how valued, how essential. They had started as 2 people hiding from a party they did not want to attend. They had become everything to each other. And that, Penelope thought as she drifted off, was the best love story of all. The kind that snuck up on you when you were not paying attention, the kind that felt easy and natural and right, the kind that lasted forever.